Welcome to the bullshit-free zone. Welcome to Weight Loss Biohacks. In this video, we will cover an extremely important topic, which is how to avoid binge eating. More specifically, we will cover the following topics. We will first try to look at the big picture and get a feel for what a huge tragedy binge eating really is and how few people actually talk about it. It simply does not get the attention it deserves. We will then speak about what causes binge eating and whether it's just the carbs that are all around us or if the situation is a bit more complicated. We will then cover some of the pharmaceuticals that may offer great help. And next, we will cover a very simple, but in my opinion, rather magical behavioral modification, which I believe can cut the incidence of binge eating in at least half. Next, we will cover what to do when a binge becomes unavoidable and if you find yourself in the middle or rather at the beginning of one. Now, when I work with somebody and we implement a weight loss program, just about anybody is able to diet for a certain period of time. It's very rare that I give a diet to someone and within 48 hours they call or message me and say, "Hey, Luke, I can't do this. You know what? That's too much. I'm not going to be able to follow this diet. I give up." That just about never happened. In fact, that never ever happened. But what usually happens is after 5, 6, 7, 8 days, they go on a binge, and that binge will undo every little bit of progress that they have made over the subsequent, over the previous 6 or 7 days. Binge eating just once a week will keep you from losing weight. You could stick to a diet 6 days a week, but one binge once a week will easily undo all of the progress that you've made. In fact, you could go on a 2-day binge once a month. And if during the remaining 28 days of the month you were on a diet that had you lose weight rather, at a slower, moderate pace, just that 2-day binge alone can completely take you back to square one. Did you ever hear of Buster Douglas? Now, he's an old timer. He doesn't box anymore. He was the first guy to beat Mike Tyson in the ring. And this example shows us how nobody's immune to binging, how actually sticking to a diet, how watching what you eat is such a monumental undertaking that somebody as brave and as hardened as Buster Douglas can sometimes slip off. What happened is Mike Tyson was the god of boxing, and this rather unknown boxer, Buster Douglas, goes into the ring, steps up, and he's a 40-1 underdog. If you had bet $1,000 on him to win, you would have made $40,000 as a result of this particular fight. He goes into the ring and destroys Mike Tyson. The whole world's attention is on him, and as usually happens in these cases, they schedule an immediate rematch. Unfortunately, after he won, Buster Douglas starts partying and he starts eating and he cannot stop eating. And the guy who looked lean and mean, as you see on the left hand picture, turns into the pudgy dude that you see on the right hand side. He gained 30 pounds. He threw away everything. And when he came back, he lost. So I don't care how tough you are, I don't care how disciplined you are always prone to binging, no matter how hard you try. So we really got to talk about this. Now, the craziest part is nobody wants to talk about it. Everybody's either in denial or people just joke about it. I mean, many times I found myself in the midst of a conversation where people laugh about the binges that they've been on. Bro, last night I ate like 4 burgers, and even that wasn't enough. I came home and had a slice of pizza. Haha, is that funny or what? And then the other dude goes like, "You know what? I ate 6 candy bars last evening, and I came home, found some hard candy on the table that my kid left, and I ate that one too." And then again, a whole burst of laughter breaks up. Um, why do we joke about this? What's so funny about it? I mean, you're basically saying that you're taking a step closer to your death. You have a fatal habit, and you laugh about it. I really have a very hard time understanding why that is. Have you ever heard anybody joking about smoking 2 packs of cigarettes a day? Never have. Have you heard anybody joking about, working in a toxic environment and inhaling toxic chemicals that will give you cancer? I don't think you did. But unfortunately, for some strange reason, binging almost appears, cute and funny and adorable in its own bizarre, strange, sick way. What exactly is it that leads to excessive eating? Let's pause here and dispel a stupid popular myth. As I've spoken about it numerous times during this video series, Society invents a new villain every few decades, and today's villain is carbs. Yes, excess carb consumption is a problem. Yes, excessive sugar consumption is going to do bad things to you. But a lot of people operate under the assumption that it's just the carbs that we're surrounded with that results in overeating. There's a lot of carbs. Carbs are addictive, so we overeat. It really is not that simple. Can you go ahead and tell me foods that you consumed in excess? Think about it for a moment. Name a few foods that you consumed in uncontrollable fashion. For example, it could have been cookies, cake, chocolate, ice cream, burgers, fries, pizza, potato chips. Are these foods high in carbs? Yes, they are. Are these foods purely carbs? No, they're not. In every single one of these cases, as well as just about any other example that you might be able to think of, those foods are very rich in carbs as well as very rich in fat. If you're talking about a food that is very high in carbs but has very little or no fat, that food is nearly impossible to overeat. So please let that sink in and allow me to repeat that. If you're talking about a food that is very high in carbohydrates but does not contain an appreciable amount of fats, that is not a food that people tend to binge on. That food is nearly impossible to overeat. Take a boiled potato, take a baked potato. That doesn't have much fat in it, if at all. Has anyone ever overeaten this? No. But take the goddamn thing, fry it, and it morphs into a monster. What are some other foods that are just about purely sugar, purely carb? Hard candy. This isn't just, purely carbs. This is a specific form of carbs. In other words, it's sugar, pure sugar. How many times have you eaten hard candy in uncontrollable fashion? How many times were you sitting at your desk or sitting in front of the TV, kept thinking of hard candy, and after a while the thought became just so overwhelming that you rushed to the store, got some, and then ate the whole bag in one sitting? Has that ever happened to you? I really doubt it. But that does happen with cookies and ice cream and whatnot. How about marshmallows? They're a little bit more tasty and a little bit more, enticing than hard candy. Marshmallows too are purely sugar. They don't have any fat. And those two, if consumed on their own, yeah, you might be able to overconsume them. But again, nobody's obsessing about marshmallows and nobody's gaining a whole bunch of weight because they're eating marshmallows every day of the week. Just about doesn't happen. Once again, I'm not against low carb diets. I'm not telling you to go ahead and eat sugar, but pinning the entire blame on carbohydrates creates the following situation. People go like, if I can go ahead and eliminate sugar from my life, all of my problems are going to be solved. They eliminate sugar from their lives. That usually takes a lot of effort and a lot of willpower. They concentrate all of their willpower on this one particular goal, and it does not solve the problem. Do not reduce the problem to just carbs. It's more complex than that. This topic actually has been an obsession for me. I mean, I've spent so much time on Reddit, on some other forums. In fact, Reddit has a subreddit dedicated solely to binge eating. And I've observed so many clients of mine, and I've spent so much time trying to understand what exactly it is that causes binge eating. Let's, cover a few general topics about it. Number one, stress is a major contributor. And of course, food is the most accessible sedative. In fact, food for the vast majority of people in modern society, especially for people who live in a big city and live in a cramped apartment, for like most of the day, at least 6 days a week or so, food is literally the only thing to look forward to. Like, as in, literally, you get out of bed and you're looking at the day ahead that's awaiting you. Food and Netflix is just about the only pleasure you're going to get. The breakfast that you'll have at home or at work is the only pleasure that is available to you for the next 3, 4, 5 hours. After working half a day, lunch is the only escape that you will have, and you'd rather get something tasty and something distracting. Otherwise, the day will become unbearable. And at the end of the day, dinner and or what you'll eat in front of the TV is again going to be the last bit of pleasure that you'll get throughout the day, especially when you have anger and frustration that you have to somehow vent, that you have to that you have to somehow get rid of. That can easily trigger a binge because again, that's like pretty much your only escape in life. In addition, novel foods and open buffets are extremely risky. If you happen to travel to France for business and you're going to stay at a pleasant hotel that has an open buffet for both breakfast and dinner, that can very easily turn into a binge. New tastes, unaccustomed taste, new food that you want to try, uh, often triggers a binge. But here is the most important thing: the act of dieting, which involves depriving yourself of at least some of the tasty foods that you've been freely eating so far, is one of the major triggers that results in binge eating. And you know what? I do not have a simple solution for that. Let's elaborate on the diet connection a little bit. If most of the pleasure in your life comes from rewarding yourself with food, and that is the case for, in my opinion, the vast majority of people in modern life, while dieting, you will feel deprived, as in there'll be something missing from your life. Your life will feel as incomplete as it would if you separate it from your loved one. Literally, that's what most people feel. This discomfort can only be partially partially taken care of. I do not have a simple trick to completely eliminate this discomfort during the process of dieting. Such a trick does not exist, such a solution does not exist. You will feel deprived. You will feel like something is missing. And if that goes on for a long period of time, it may very well result in a binge. That's why people who are not binge eaters, who eat normal meals during normal meal times but overeat, when they go on a diet, they oftentimes end up binging. How exactly does a binge work step by step? Well, what phases do you go through, and that results in a binge? Deprivation leads to obsessive thoughts about tasty foods. You stop having burgers, you stop having pizza, and then after a while, and rather suddenly, you start thinking about these foods pretty much all day long. And You say, I might just have a little bite just to silence the inner voice and find some peace because, this is keeping me from focusing on my life. In my case, when I was working in investment banking, most of my binges were triggered by the realization that if I went ahead and ate at least some little amount of that food that I was obsessing about, I wouldn't be able to work. Usually they happen, at the end of the day, when the calls quiet down a little bit, when the clients stop bothering you, you sit down and write your reports for the next day. It's like 6 p.m., 6:30 p.m. I'm hoping to finish whatever work I'm doing within the next half an hour or 1 hour, and I'll just get the hell out of the office and have something pleasant but not too high in calories. And I can't focus on my work. I spend 45 minutes and do only 15 minutes worth of work because I really want to have something sweet. I almost always crave sweets. I never crave a burger, which I like, but it's not what I usually crave. And at some point, I inevitably tell myself, you know what? Let me just go out, grab a bite of whatever, something sweet. Otherwise, I'm going to be sitting here all night long. I won't be able to finish this report. Every other sentence, I have to stop and then, chase away from my mind the thought of chocolate or ice cream. And I just cannot write this report. Then that little treat that you have, that little bite that you have in order to silence that inner voice, dramatically increases your urge to have more. Floodgates open. You all of a sudden get excited. Sometimes, in fact, a lot of times, if you were to measure your pulse, if you were to measure your body temperature, you would realize that at the beginning of a binge, when you put that first bit of tasty food in your mouth, your pulse will go up and your body temperature will ever so slightly elevate. This is how dramatic the effect is. You will literally like experience a physical change. And then disaster ensues. You cannot stop. That little, scoop of ice cream that you were hoping to have turns into an entire bucket full. But wait, it gets worse. It gets much worse. Let's say, you started with burgers. And instead of having like a, small burger, you ended up getting a double cheeseburger. And you ordered some side of fries. And you had some Coke. And you devoured the entire thing, even though you were hoping to eat maybe half and, take the remaining half home. You had that. But now the pendulum swings in the exact opposite direction. Now you've consumed so much salty and savory food that your mouth, that your palate is dominated by that taste, which is now proving to be too much. Now you gotta have something that has the opposite kind of taste. You're craving something sweet. And then, since it's too late, it's not worth fighting this urge anymore. Since the battle has already been lost, you go ahead and have a brownie. That's what happens to most of the people. If you were to start with the brownie, followed by, a bit of an ice cream, chances are you would then, once again, go in the opposite direction and desire something savory. And even if you were not going and having a burger after your brownie, you would probably, at the very least, get a small hot dog or a pretzel. And needless to say, you've already put on like a half a pound or a pound. You've consumed that. You easily can put 1 pound, by the way, as a result of a long and prolonged binge, and all the work over the last 10 days has gone to waste. What tools are available? Let's start with the pharmaceuticals, but that's not the only thing that we're going to talk about. There's only one FDA approved medication for treating binge eating disorder, and that's sold under the brand name Vyvanase. I'm not even sure if I'm pronouncing it correctly. It's an amphetamine, but it's the lisdexamfetamine version. It is very similar to Adderall, but it has a milder action, lower abuse potential, and a lot of people refer to it as the slow release Adderall, which technically is not exactly accurate, but not too far off the mark. It is very similar to Adderall. I'm not saying that this is the sole solution, but do not, approach this with a closed mind. If binge eating is an ongoing issue for you, and you believe that you can benefit from this, do talk about this drug with your doctor. This may help. Another thing that may help is bupropion plus naltrexone. This is a drug combination that's used for dieting. We haven't covered this so far, but I'm hoping to make a video about this shortly. And uh, you know, even though this is not exactly approved by the FDA for treating a binge eating disorder, your doctor, at least in the United States, is at liberty to go ahead and prescribe this for binge eating. It would be called an off-label use. And research studies show that it is in fact effective for binge eating disorder. It may not be, extremely effective. For example, in this particular research published in the American Journal of Psychiatry, they compared behavioral modification versus doing nothing versus this two drug combination for binge eating disorder. And either behavioral modification, behavioral therapy alone, or the drug combination, either of them were superior to doing nothing. However, there was not a statistically significant difference between the drug versus the behavioral modification therapy. So it appears to be somewhat effective. It appears to be, it does appear to be effective rather. Let me not say somewhat. It does appear to be effective, but this study brings up the question as to whether this is superior to behavioral therapy, and this study suggests that it is not. Now, one of the first videos of this channel was about GLP-1 agonists. These are drugs such as, the Ozempic, Wegovy, Zepbound, Mounjaro, Rybelsus, and all the other drugs in this class. I highly recommend that you go back and watch that particular video. It's a piece of work that I'm very proud of because it's very comprehensive and answers just about any question you might possibly have. There is no specific research measuring the impact of these drugs on binge eating disorder. However, I feel very confident that these are very likely to help and may even, for a lot of people, eliminate the problem completely because these drugs simply reduce your motivation for food. Think about, all the dynamics that we've spoken about, how a binge emerges, what leads to a binge, the excessive motivation, the obsessive thoughts about food, the opening up of your senses, food tasting extremely pleasurable. These drugs exactly reduce all those sensations. When on these drugs, food feels simply less exciting. And I do know from talking to clients and friends, and from talking to people online, that most people completely stop binging when on these foods. So if binge eating is an issue for you, strongly do consider these drugs. Beyond medicines, there's of course a lot that you can do. Here's a solution that I have, well, thought about, let's say. I don't want to use the word created, that's maybe too strong a statement. But here's a solution that I came up with throughout the years, and it's worked amazingly for myself, for friends, and for clients. I'm confident that this simple trick, let's say, will reduce binge eating by at least half. It is very, very simple. And I call it indulging outside of the house. If you want to go ahead and try this, I invite you to make a simple pact with yourself. If you really crave a particular food, no matter which food it is, you can go and have it. Within reason, of course. Just have one serving of ice cream. If you simply cannot stop, have a second serving, but don't make it 8 servings. Within reason, you can have any food that you like. So, how do you ensure that it doesn't turn into a binge? You just do not keep any of it at home. That is the rule. That's it. Allow me to elaborate. Let me explain. Let's say you're craving chocolate. Feels like you're really gonna end up having it because you can't fight that urge anymore. You do not have any at home. As a result, in order to eat chocolate, what you gotta do is number one, put on your shoes. Number two, go to the store. Number three, eat the chocolate. The only rule is that when you're finished with this process, there should be no chocolate left in your house. Period. Do you have to eat the chocolate outside or whatever treat it is that you want to have? No, you can eat your treat outside or at home. If you want to have a chocolate at the park, inside your car, wherever, that's perfectly fine. If you want to sit down at your favorite pizzeria and enjoy a slice or even an entire pie, you can have it. If you want to have a burger at your favorite joint, you can have it. If you'd rather take some ice cream, bring it home, and eat it with the remote control in your hand and watching your favorite game or watching Netflix, that's perfectly fine. Once again, there's just one rule. When you're done eating that amount that you have planned to eat, there must be none left in your pantry or in your fridge. That is it. You're only going to get a single serving, or if you're feeling extremely motivated and very hungry and like you really want to consume more than one serving, say 1.5 servings or 2 servings, just keep it reasonable. Eat it, and then once done, come back home. And when you're done, there should be none left in your fridge or in your pantry. It's as simple as that. We are simply trying to avoid one dreadful scenario, which is the following. There's ice cream sitting in your fridge, you're sitting on your couch, and you desire to have it. Now you put yourself in that terrible situation where you must continue to fight that urge forever. If over the next 4 hours you're doing a great job and you're able to fight that urge appropriately and effectively for 3 hours and 59 minutes, but you let yourself slip for just one single minute, it's over. It's over, and this is a battle that you cannot win. If there is dangerous food sitting in your house, then at some point you're going to go ahead and eat it. And if there is a large amount of that food or large amount of various types of dangerous foods, it is very, very likely to turn into a binge. That's simple. What other behavioral modifications can we do in order to, put more odds in our favor? Number one, do not set the bar too high when dieting. Do not push yourself excessively hard. Now, an ongoing discussion in diet circles is if you should take a day off dieting 1 day per week. If, for example, it's a good idea to not diet on Sundays and eat whatever you like within reason in order to give yourself a mental break and in order to speed up your metabolism. Now, the second part of that argument, speeding up your metabolism by recarbing or undieting 1 day per week, that's pretty much bogus. We'll talk about in a subsequent video. Yes, by eating more, you will accelerate your metabolic rate, but it'll come right back down when you go back to dieting. And in order to accelerate your metabolic rate, you just consume more calories and you put on more fat. So it comes out to worse than even. But by giving you a mental break, could it make binges less likely? Maybe. I'm not feeling so confident about this because that 1 day when you do not diet can, in and of itself, turn into a binge. I've seen that happen over and over again. But you know what? If you're taking it easy 1 day per week, if during that period you're not overdoing it and exaggerating it, and you don't feel like there's much of a danger of that turning into a binge, yeah, that could work. But most importantly, do not be in denial, and when the early signs of a binge emerge, act. Have a plan at hand, and if it does turn into a binge despite your best efforts, stay calm. Do not turn this into a game of self blame, self hatred. Do not make your life worse by hating yourself as a result. But let's come back to that plan that I've spoken about. What exactly should you do when the devil is knocking on your door and a binge is starting. How do you know when a binge is starting? As we said, the first sign is obsessive thoughts about food. It can be about, very tasty food in general, or one specific food. It is usually accompanied by a heightened sense of taste and smell. If you put, for example, to calm yourself a little bit, if you put a sugar-free piece of gum in your mouth, let's say, strawberry flavored, you can almost feel like you're eating a pound of strawberries. That smell that emanates from that gum fills your nostrils, and everything feels much more intense. When you're in that state, a binge is very likely, and there's excitement. Thinking about that particular food fills you with energy, fills you with excitement. Like, a brownie may feel like, winning a car from the lottery or something. When you got all of these going on, a binge is coming. Act. So, what exactly do you do? Step number one, immediately consume a good amount of protein. Immediately. Step number two, go ahead and consume a milder version of the food that you're craving. I'll explain that in a minute. Now, of course, when you're craving brownies or when you're craving, like, fried chicken wings, it may be hard to consume lean protein. Tell yourself, just like your mother used to tell you, get that protein in, and afterwards you are going to have a treat. Just like your mother used to tell you, have your vegetables and then you'll get ice cream. Knowing that ice cream was coming, it was all right having those vegetables. You could force yourself to. That protein, should be something that is a little tasty. Otherwise, you'll have a very hard time consuming it. In the back of your mind, you're thinking of chocolates. You're not going to be able to eat chicken breasts. Fat-free cottage cheese with fruit usually works great. Protein powder mixed with yogurt, with maybe some fresh fruit, or maybe even some cinnamon and sugar sprinkled on top, may feel all right. That's why you should always have some protein powder at home. Maybe a bland tasting protein bar will work, but do not get those protein bars that taste exactly like candy, because you're going to wind up eating 10 of them in a row. So, immediately consume some kind of lean ish protein that will calm your nerves a little bit, and that will fill your stomach up a little bit, that will result in a whole bunch of neurochemical signals that will make it the subsequent consumption less intense, but immediately apply that first step. Afterwards, get a milder version of what you crave. Say you're craving ice cream. Do not eat ice cream under any circumstances. The single worst thing that you can do under these circumstances is to tell yourself that you'll get ice cream, but you'll only have one scoop. Walk over to the fridge and have that one scoop, and that one scoop will trigger a flood. It will turn into an all out binge. Do not have ice cream. Instead, have this. Have frozen yogurt, for example. And I'll explain the logic in a second. It's not what you think. I'm not trying to divert you to a lower calorie food instead. I'll explain in a second. If you're not able to get frozen yogurt, go ahead and get the lowest fat, least tasty ice cream or ice cream substitute that you can find in the store. You want to get something that doesn't exactly taste like the ice cream you're craving. It should be halfway between, like, something tasteless and something as tasty as that ice cream that you're craving. Something that is okay to consume. Let's say you're craving burgers with fries. Instead, get this, for example. This is the McDonald's grilled chicken wrap. Um, it is critical that you grasp the logic. It's critical that you understand what we're doing here. By the way, this I found really helpful. This has really saved me on many occasions. And once again, the idea here is this tastes, I don't want to exactly say similar to a burger, but it's got some of the features, some of the attributes of a hamburger, but of course, uh, to a far lesser extent. It is savory, it's salty. If you put sufficient ranch dressing on it, and feel free to put more than usual, it's creamy. It is, like, it's got carbs and fats, and it's also got some protein. It's juicy with the tomatoes and lettuce inside. It has some of the features of hamburgers. What you're trying to do is to prevent that avalanche, that explosion of pleasure that you would get if you actually went ahead and consumed ice cream or a hamburger. Your senses are already open. You are already very perceptive. The smell of food is going to be amplified. The taste of the food that you're going to put in your mouth is going to get amplified. you pretty much get something like an orgasm if you have that ice cream or that burger. And then you will not be able to stop. It's as simple as that. What we're seeking is you eating, a close a substitute. I don't want to say close substitute. What we want to accomplish is you eating something that is somewhat similar to the food that you're craving, and at the end saying, well, that was okay. It wasn't all that great, but it wasn't terrible. If you're saying, oh my God, that was a piece of heaven, you're in trouble. You won't be able to stop. We're just seeking an okay, a so so substitute. Something that will make you go, that wasn't what I was looking for, but it wasn't terrible. Now I'm kind of feeling full. I still do desire a burger or ice cream, but at this stage, I can resist the urge. You know, that's what we're after. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thanks a lot for sticking with me so far. Let me quickly sum up what we've spoken about in these video series so far and what's next. We have at the beginning spoken of a few pharmaceuticals, namely nicotine and GLP-1 agonists. We then explained the weight loss mechanism and covered the importance or the lack of importance of exercise. We spoke about how to structure a weight loss diet, then mentioned the power of protein. We then explained what and what not to eat, and now we've covered the topic of how to deal with binges. Now, the tools that we have introduced thus far may be sufficient for a lot of people, but especially if you do not have access to GLP-1 agonists because they are not available in your country, or they're available but they're way too expensive to use, I want to give you a few more options. In the next videos, I want to cover a few more medicines that can come in totally handy and might make it easier to stick to whatever diet you're following. Thank you very much and see you in the next video.